Okay, the purpose of this video is to review solving a linear equation that linear equations used to look easy, and then we start sticking a bunch of denominators on them, and they really look ugly. And so we're getting a chance to kind of use our simplifying skills here. So let's take a look at what we mean. So this equation does not look nice. I mean, honestly, I don't want to guess and check numbers for x and try to calculate all this stuff and finally get an answer. So I'd like to be able to do something to solve this. And as you know, what we do when we're solving these things is basically take some step, some legitimate step, to make the equation look at least a little bit simpler. And then we try to go a little bit simpler from that and a little bit simpler from that. So what could I do to make this thing look a little bit simpler? Well, we've seen at times you can make stuff cancel out. We practiced this a little bit earlier. If you were in my class, we looked at all these denominators and said, you know what? If I could find a number that all of these go into and then multiply both sides of the equation by that, it's going to make this thing work out a lot nicer. Now, that may not make a lot of sense. Let's take a look at what it looks like. Okay? So I'm looking at 3, 2, and 6 and saying, you know, all of those go into 6. Okay? So what I'm going to do is multiply this side of the equation by 6, and you won't let me get away with multiplying one side of an equation by 6 without multiplying the other side. Okay? Well, instead of multiplying the whole thing by 6, what I'm going to do is multiply each individual part of it by 6. So I'm going to multiply this part right here by 6 and this part by 6. So I haven't broken the rules. The rules say I've got to, whatever I do to one side, I have to do to the other. So since I multiplied the right side by 6, everything on the right side by 6, I'm going to multiply everything on the left side by 6. Let's see how that helps. Well, over here, that 6 and that 6 are both divisible by 6. So I'm going to do that. Divide by 6, divide by 6. Okay, I'm just reducing the fractions. And so I end up with -1, because -1 times 1 is -1 over 1. Okay, so -1. Over here, on the left side, what happens? Well, that 6 and that 3 are both divisible by 3. Let's do it. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 6 divided by 3 is 2. Okay, so now, instead of 6 times this whole big ugly fraction, I just have 2 times the top of it. Okay, so that's 2 times x plus 4. Okay, and over here, the 2 and the 6 are both divisible by 2. So I'm going to do that. Okay. So now, since the denominator is going to be 1, I'm not going to bother writing it. I've got 3 times x plus 7. Careful, it's a -3 there. So -3 times x plus 7. So by this step we took, multiplying both sides of the equation by 6, we've taken an equation that looked really ugly and made it look a little bit less ugly. Well, let's make it look even less ugly. Let's simplify things out here. Okay. So we just used the distributive property. That's a legitimate step, and we did it right. -3 times x and -3 times -7. All that stuff, we did it correctly. We can combine like terms. We know that's a legitimate move. So -1x is what you get when you combine 2x and -3x. And then +8 plus -21 is -13. Okay. So now we've made the thing look even simpler. And once we add 13 to each side, we're going to get x equals 14. No, we're not. We're going to get x equals 12. There we go. X equals 12. -1 plus 13 is 12. And when you divide 12 by -1, you get x equals -12. So there's your answer. Way simpler than guessing and checking to finally get it right. Let's look at another one. Okay. So on this one, the denominators are 2 and 3. Well, what do 2 and 3 both go into? 6 again. So let's multiply each side by 6. Okay. I'm going to multiply that one by 6 here, so I'm going to multiply each of these other ones by 6. Be a little careful there. Okay. And we'll start doing our reducing thing again here. 2 and 6 are both divisible by 2, so let's get that done. Okay. And 3 and 6 are both divisible by 3, so let's get that done. And now we can rewrite this thing. On the right side here, we got negative 18. On the left side, now I've got 3 times this whole thing there. And don't forget that's a quantity, so 3 times that quantity, 3x minus 1. Over here, be careful, that's a negative 2 there, so negative 2 times 2x plus 5. Okay. So it looks less ugly now. It doesn't have all those fractions in it. And then we can start simplifying this. 9x minus 3 and negative 4x minus 10 equals negative 18. And 9x combined with negative 4x is positive 5x. And negative 3 combined with negative 10 is negative 13. And then when I add when I add positive 13 to negative 18, I get negative 5, and negative 5 divided by 5 is x equals negative 1. So I got my answer again. So the whole thing is when you see those denominators up there, don't panic. Find something that both of them go into. Okay? So here's a last one here. And I'm looking at 2 and 14 and saying, well, both those go into 14, so let's just multiply both sides by 14. And we'll do our reducing here. 2 and 14 reduced to 1 and 7. And so that just becomes negative 7. 7 times negative 1. And 14 and 14 reduced to 1 and 1. So I just ended up with a positive plus sign in here, and then x plus 9, because the 14s all cancel out. And over here I've got negative 14 still. And so simplifying stuff out here, I've got negative 7 plus 9 is 2. So I got x plus 2 equals negative 14. And when I subtract 2 from each side, I get x equals negative 16. And I'm pretty sure I stole this from Delta Math, so let's go back to Delta Math and type it in. I think that's the same problem here. Yep. Okay. So we'll type in negative 16. And it'll be really embarrassing if I'm wrong, but that happens. Got it right. Okay. So again, back to these problems here. It doesn't matter what kind of denominators you've got. You could have be really sick looking. You could have 3x over 5 minus 2x minus 7 over 4 equals 3 over 8. And you'd have to look and say, well, what number do both do 5, 4, and 8 go into? That's going to be 40. So you'll multiply everything by 40. Remember to multiply everything by 40, and then start reducing. 1 and 8, that's going to get you 24x. And 4 and the 40 reduced to 1 and 10. Oops. Okay. Remember, that's a negative 10. So you got negative 10 times the 2x minus 7 there. And here the 8 and the 40 reduced to 1 and 5, so you get 15. So you've taken the thing from a big ugly thing with fractions in it to something with no denominators, and you can solve from there. Okay, good luck.